Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. I'm feeling good.
Circuit Zandvoort is the location and round 10 is the occasion. This is the Alpha Touring Challenge and we have just 4 races to go in season 12. Michael Polasek and Spencer Clark hold slim leads on their respective classes, and there is one more wrench to throw into the works today. It is the series' first ever visit to a wet circuit. This is Circuit Zandvoort. It'll be a pretty cool day, especially track temp wise, as the moisture will be keeping the track cool. And it was raining a lot in practice, so there's a little bit of moisture on track still for qualifying. And not only that, but there is rain forecast for the race. About 15 to 20 minutes into the race, rain will fall. There are 2 pit stops in the race, so the drivers will be hoping to time their fuel stops with the optimal time to put those wet tires on. We're gonna look at Spencer Clark now as he comes through to start a lap. Let's see where everyone is on track at the moment. The Delta drivers will be starting their first laps. This is the Delta Championship leader, Clark. He's not the first car on track. That is Daniel Sedano, who's starting his first flying lap now, and into turn 1. He's going a bit wide and into the wall, and that is unfortunate because now he's gonna have to tow back, and the Deltas already do not get a whole lot of time in qualifying to begin with, so he's going to have to really push from here on out to set a good lap. We'll go on board with Clark through his lap as he heads into turn 3 here, and he's on a low line, and that is interesting. Some drivers may be finding that better with the wet track, but typically that higher line, the banking, carries you around faster and with more momentum. And now he's also going to avoid the curbing there. We'll cut in a little bit here. You want to kind of try and staff the painted lines, although they're mostly dry now. It's really the curbs that are the danger bit. And some spots on the racing line, like right there, he's really getting pushed out there. A lot of understeer as he hits a moist spot on the track. They are on dry tires. It is not wet enough for the wet tires, so these guys are having to manage getting around a track where there's still spray on essentially slick tires. And he's just having to avoid as many of these apexes as possible, about a car's width off of all of them. The track should improve throughout qualifying, which may mean the Alpha class will get an even better track here. And we might see a pretty clear class split in terms of times. Not avoiding apexes as much through the chicane. Kyle Murray is going faster in Sector 2 than Spencer Clark. And now he'll head through the final corner that you have to slow down for. It's the penultimate corner. Leads into this final corner where you are flat out. And again, he's going to hang it around the high side, though he's going to get a little closer to the racing line this time. And he will come across. He'll do a 53.66, and Kyle Murray will follow him and jump to the top of the leaderboard. And then Brian Son comes up in third. So the times, the spread is about a second and a half right now. You see more drivers finishing their laps. Clavijo is fast in Sector 2. And across the line he comes. And he'll jump to P2, slotting in between Murray and Clark, and he's breaking off the racing line for turn 1. And now Rakowski goes third fastest, and she's on the podium now. And there are 4 more Delta drivers who have not set a lap at this point. And that's Cedeno, Lynn, Rickmeyer, and Holroyd. The 661 of Jason Lind is coming into the final corner now to finish his first lap, getting on that curbing. Now maybe testing whether or not it is dry enough to do that. I would think you'd be spinning the tires a little bit, but maybe not. Maybe stuff's starting to dry out enough. And a little pop out, but he'll come back in, and 4th place, a 1:53.59. And Clark is about to come back around, having improved his Sector 2, but he had a worse Sector 1. And if the track is continuously getting better, these guys may just keep improving, and it's going to come down to who can set that fast lap last, if they're close enough. Clark off the final corner, and he will have time for one more lap. Everyone who crosses the line now, this will be their last lap. There's not enough time for them to do anything else. Clark improves his time and goes pole, and Murray, though he improves his, 10th and a half off of Clark. So for now, Clark has the Delta pole. Son comes across 5th, purple in the final sector, so he found something there. Now we see Cedeno finish his first lap, P7, and Lewis Gilbert improves to P3, a 53 dead. And Gilbert and Cedeno representing for the Audis. And Clavijo, look at this. Purple Sector 2, improving first and third sectors. And now he breaks into the 51 seconds. And this continues now. Every single Delta driver will not be able to... I don't think anybody will be starting a new lap. Maybe the 661. I think Jason Lynn will be able to start a new lap. Everyone else behind him, they are on their final laps. The Alpha class is starting to queue up at the end of pit lane. You see, I believe that's McKenzie, and then Schink and Polasek at the front of the queue. I hope Schink has gone back to pit road. Maybe didn't like the amount of fuel in the car or the setup. Jason Lynn across the line, and he jumps to the lead. He is on pole position with a 51.8. He went purple in Sector 1, so now we wait for the rest of the Delta class to respond. Clark is yellow in Sector 2. So he's got to go into these final 2 corners and pick something up, and hopefully he did well through the chicane. He'll come through the final corner. Everyone behind him is on an improvement. Clark's got to find something if he wants to get back on pole. The Alpha class is out of pit lane. Clark across the line. And he will not improve on this lap. I'm not sure what that lap time is, but here comes Murray, and he will not improve. And then Son, Cedeno. These lap times are interesting. I'm wondering if the overlay is struggling with something here. We'll see if those positions are final, but for now, it looks like Jason Lin is your pole sitter. We'll check the final grid after this. Who else is yet to come across the line? Clavijo finishes his lap, and that did look like a 152. It looks like it's doubling their lap times, or even tripling them. And then Jason Lin will get to finish this lap. And he cut this close because David Bauer of the Alpha class is not that far behind him. And how did David Bauer get to the front of that pack? You have Bauer, you have Polasek, and then you have McKenzie. That's not the order they were in when they were sitting in the queue. We'll see if we can discern whether or not Lin is going to improve here. Parking as close as he can to that racing line, out of the corner. And he will do a 151.5 if possibly. He may have improved there. We'll look to David Bowers. He starts his flying lap. And the Alpha drivers begin their trips around the track. So the bright pink B4D number 35 Elantra. It's had an up and down season, but it leads the Alpha class Alpha qualifying today here at Zandvoort. The track, you can only imagine, is continuing to get drier and drier. As you see Bauer take that higher line that we saw Clark avoid earlier. I think Clark's just coming in the pit lane right now. And Francois Schink must have had some serious adjustments to make because he's only just now finishing his out lap. Or maybe he just decided to let everyone go and give himself space. But Bauer into Sector 2 now. He's followed by Polasek and McKenzie around the track. Less than 5 minutes remain in this qualifying session. Who will be on top to start ATC's first ever wet race? It'll be interesting to see these initial lap times. You see Schink right there in the background coming down the backstretch. That's how far back from the rest of the group he is. There are others even further back. The 96 of Raymond 2, the 502 of Anthony Harrison has just stopped at turn 1, and then the 130 of Fleet Smith. He's also all the way back there. I wonder how much warming the tires is going to matter. Looks like the curbs clearly don't matter anymore as Bauer uses that one all the way down. And out of the final corner, he will finish his first lap. And across the line, it's a 151.1, and Polasek goes 2 seconds faster. McKenzie, a 55. Mike De Almeida, a 50 dead. These times are all over the place as the drivers are just trying to figure out how fast the track actually is. Connor Nakatella is on provisional pole. Here is Zandvoort, the double yellow driver, with a 49.023, 8/1000ths faster than Polasek. There's Micah Hendricks slotting into 3rd. Matt Zepka is 4th. Mark Darnell 8th. Berlucci 11th. Mitchell 12th. And after all that, Bauer's been demoted down to P13. It makes you wonder it really will matter who is on track last. Because Bauer was the first to set a lap, and now he's at the bottom of the pile. Although there were drivers setting faster laps than him pretty much immediately. Polasek was the second driver across the line, and he remains P2. And he's actually closing up to the back of Bauer. So he may end up having to back off here. He has a lot of space behind him as McKenzie himself has sort of slipped back there. Now, Raymond 2 has gone to pole. And Fleet Smith, I think he's about to come across, and he goes 5th fastest. So 2 6/10ths faster. He come across way later than everyone else. Fleet up to 5th. And Anthony Harrison starts his first flying lap. Polasek is purple in Sector 2. He has enough space to finish this lap behind Bauer, and then he's going to have to abandon. He either has to abandon this one or abandon the next one. And I don't know which I think he's abandoned this one. Because that gap to Bauer grew again. And he may have enough time for 2 more laps here. He goes pole. Bauer goes 49.2. McKenzie 48.8. It sure looked like they were going slow through that sector, but maybe not. Mike D'Almeida, 4th. A great time from him. John Lazan is going to go 3rd in that Honda. And then Zepka comes back, improves to 49.4. Carr, Hendricks on top with a 47.9. Damon Mitchell up into 4th. He goes with a 48.6. And Darnell and Thomas back across the line. Ian Bertolucci representing for SRG. He puts that car on provisional pole. And he, along with there's a couple cars here that are on their last lap. Or there's a couple cars here who are not on their last lap, and everyone else is. And I don't know where that cutoff is, but it starts with Polasek will get 2 more laps, and I'm not sure if anyone else will. Maybe McKenzie. And I suppose Raymond too. He just come across the line. He'll get 1 more lap. And I think Fleet Smith may end up being the last car across the line. Anthony Harrison and Cooper Akers may also start another lap, but this is going to be interesting. Smith is purple in Sector 2. He's got pace on top of being in actually kind of a good position in this qualifying session, in this rotation. He goes 3rd with a 47.8. Now we're going to see Anthony Harrison's pace as he finishes his first lap. He goes 17th, and he's off into the grass, and that invalidates his final lap. His qualifying is done. Holroyd's about to finish his first lap. David Bauer is coming around the final corner now. He's got 2 improvements on his sector. I don't think Holroyd should be on track right now. But Bauer improves to 5th. McKenzie goes 2nd. Mike D'Almeida 3rd. As qualifying ends, and I think McKenzie got across the line early enough to start another lap, but Mike D'Almeida didn't. Lazan goes pole. Zepka goes 2nd. Hendricks, Acatella. It's really going to be whoever comes across the line last, because this track keeps improving. Here comes Bertolucci. He was on pole last time he looped around. This time, P2 behind Lazan. Now here comes Francois Schink. He's been quiet during this session, but he'll make it P2 on his final lap. Clutch when he needs to be. And now Raymond 2. He sits in 5th. He's got 2 green sectors. Fleet Smith is behind him on an even bigger improvement. Across the line. For double yellow, he's on provisional pole. Raymond 2. Or excuse me, not double yellow. Yellow flag. I get their drivers confused all the time. And here comes Logan McKenzie. Can he challenge his teammate? And what about Fleet Smith? Just shy 3/10 off of Raymond 2. And now it is McKenzie and Anthony Harrison, Cooper Akers, David Bauer. Harrison will improve slightly at 48.9. Akers jumps to 10th. And that puts him ahead of McKenzie. McKenzie's all the way down in 11th, but he is on another lap just behind Bauer, who is also down there in 13th. So these two looking for second improvements on a fast track. Bauer P3, and McKenzie jumps him. So he goes P3 over him, and that ends qualifying. And that is very, very close, and we saw how important it was to be on track last. Raymond 2 secures what I believe is his first career pole position in the wet at Zandvoort. We will return shortly for a 1-hour race. Rain is on the horizon. Stay tuned. The drivers are gridding here at Zandvoort, and we are looking at the starting grid. Raymond 2 is on pole for the first time in his ATC career, and he's done it as the only driver to sneak into the 45-second range, just ahead of Fleet Smith, Logan McKenzie, David Bauer, and John Lazan. Then Schink, Bertolucci, Zepka, Hendricks, Acatella, Mike D'Almeida, Cooper Akers, James Carr, and then you have to get all the way down to P14 to find our current championship leader, Michael Polasek, 2 seconds off of pole. Then you have David Thomas, Damon Mitchell, and Mark Darnell rounding out their class. And then you have a big split, 2.5 seconds down to Delta pole sitter, Jason Lynn for Complex Penguin Racing. Then Clavijo and Rakowski are behind him. Murray, Spencer Clark, championship leader in 5th. Then you have Son, Sedano, Gilbert, Holroyd, Harrison, Castillo, and Rickmeyer. Looks like Harrison actually did not set a valid lap in that session, so he gets sent to the back of the grid. We are waiting for the drivers to finish gridding. We are waiting for the first ever wet race in the Alpha Touring Challenge to commence, but it will commence on dry tires and on what should be a totally dry track. We're ready for this to start. We await the red lights. And Raymond 2 leads them off here at Zandvoort. And he gets a great start. Fleet Smith under pressure from McKenzie on the left. Bauer on the inside there. And then it is Lazan, Schink, Zepka, Bertolucci, Acatella. They all roll through turn 1. Nice and safe. No trouble there yet. Bertolucci slots in behind Zepka. And they roll through the bowl for the first time in this race. And Raymond 2 leads them onto the backstretch. There's still a little bit of spray on the track. Lazan keeping Schink behind him. They're trying to be as careful as they can while figuring out just how much grip they have available to them now. It should be almost max grip. This is where I'd expect the track to still be a little wet, if it is at all. So if the drivers come through here and find out it's mostly dry, you're going to see them start pushing a lot harder to start this race. And you see Michael Polasek has already gained a spot since the start. Now he's going to be working James Carr, and ahead of him is Micah Hendricks. So both these guys, 2 championship contenders, sent to the back of the grid, and they have to see their other championship contender, Logan McKenzie. He starts 3rd, and Carr coming back at Polasek, not letting this one go. And further behind, battling for 14th, you have Akers, you have Damon Mitchell, you have Mark Darnell. Polasek goes for the move on Mike De Almeida and gets past him into the chicane. So that's another position for him as he continues to chase down Micah Hendricks. Raymond 2 through the final corner. He will lead the opening lap here at Circuit Zandvoort. And it does look like that final sector is still slightly moist. Where will the rain come from? It will come from the behind the final corner. So we should be able to start seeing that as this race goes on. Connor Acatella under pressure from Micah Hendricks. He gets past. Mike De Almeida yields a position to James Carr, and then you have up ahead, it's Ian Bertolucci going in on Matt Zepka, and Zepka's stuck on that low line here, and he's going to lose a lot of positions. Hendricks is going to go around him. Acatella's going to go around him, and here comes Michael Polasek, and he will fly around the right side of Zepka, and you just cannot let that happen to you. You cannot get stuck on that low line. You lose so much momentum coming down the back straightaway. We see Rakowski slot in ahead of Jason Lynn. She's still holding on to 3rd, that Delta podium, but it's Evan Clavijo in the lead because Jason Lynn has slipped down to 4th in the Delta class, and Spencer Clark has jumped to 2nd. He's gained 3 spots since the start of this race, and Rakowski gets into a big slide behind, but she managed to gather that up. Sedano, 2 wide, loses out. This is Anthony Harrison cutting through the field here. Rakowski getting loose again. She gets on the left side of Jason Lynn, and she is going to keep that spot. Battles everywhere on track. Acatella yields to Polasek in the chicane. Carr trying to go around the left side of Zepka, and does through the same corner. Now David Bauer under pressure. The top 3 are escaping from everyone else here. Bauer is sort of the cork in the bottle. And we're looking at Lynn and Rakowski fighting again into the penultimate corner. Rakowski takes a shallow line, and I think Lynn's going to be able to get the comeback. Let's see how much grip is on the inside of the track here. It's enough. Lynn takes P3, but can he hold on to it? These drivers are all very close to each other. Kyle Murray pulls out to make a move. Rakowski's going to come back at Lynn. And in the opening stages, it's the Delta class. with all kinds of stuff going on, and Lynn is going to close down on Jess, and that is going to cause a bit of a stack up there. Harrison gets collected and slows down. Kyle Murray gets held up. Rakowski is out of that pretty much unscathed. And now back to the front of the field. This is tight. You have Shink, who's just gotten around Bauer and is free to chase the leaders. Oh, car off. That is Carr, actually, James Carr. And he loses 3 spots, but manages to gather that one up. And now Mike De Almeida and Connor Acatella, double yellow teammates, go wheel to wheel. And it will be Mike De Almeida slipping through there. We're not even 5 minutes into this race, and it feels like stuff is happening up and down the field. Carr trying to recover here. Acatella comes back at Mike De Almeida, and Carr is going to take advantage of this down to the final chicane on the left side, and I think he'll have the advantage, but he has to worry about Acatella in front, so Mike De Almeida keeps the nose in, but he's probably going to have to yield here unless he keeps the momentum around the outside, and he does not, so he tucks back in. Polasek is still stuck behind Hendricks. Hendricks has front-end damage, so he slammed into the back of someone, I think. And Polasek will have a run on him here, so will he defend? Lazan going to attack his teammate Bauer. Hendricks will go on a defensive line. Lazan goes around Bauer without incident. And now Hendricks and Polasek wheel to wheel. These are championship rivals making contact out of turn 1. Hendricks ailing Audi. Can he get something going with it? He's on that outside line. He's where he needs to be. He's just got to hold it. Polasek really squeezes him, though. He's done a good job of getting all he can out of the corner, and I'm not sure that Hendricks will be able to come back at him. That was a great job by Polasek to finish that pass off. And behind, Mike De Almeida all over Acatella, and Acatella is going straight. He's gone straight, and he's let a lot of cars through. I'm not sure if he was serving his slowdown or what, but that didn't look quite natural. Darnell under pressure from David Thomas. Thomas working the left side. Forces Darnell over that curb, and he may be able to get this done. Around the outside. No, Darnell shuts him down. So back to the front. Raymond 2 continues to lead. The track is drying up a bit, and it looks like McKenzie is slowly pulling up to the top 2, but for the most part, they've all been running similar pace. Francois Schink hasn't been making inroads. That's still about a 2-second gap. So for now, things are fairly stable here at Zandvoort. Things calming down, but the rain is coming. Within the next 15 minutes, we are being told, rain should hit. So the drivers will be preparing for that as they get into the 44-second area. And remember, the best qualifying laps were 45 seconds, I believe. And now Connor Acatella is pitting. And this is an early pit. It must be to serve some kind of penalty, and as a result, he's going to miss the pit window on the wet tires, and that's going to hurt his race. Daniel Cedeno is currently running 5th in the Delta class, and he's just set the fastest lap in class. But Kyle Murray, he's right on the back of Lewis Gilbert, has to let that one go. Anthony Harrison still sits behind this group. Oh, but look at this. Gilbert slow out of the corner. Are they going to go 3 wide? They might. Harrison thinks better of it. Murray slips ahead, and they continue as they were. Bertolucci and Polasek are side by side. Bertolucci gives Polasek a little shunt, and Polasek has to slop back behind him. I wonder if that Audi has more damage than it looks from the outside. I mean, it looks pretty damaged. It looks like it's at least... it doesn't look like it's driving straight. It looks like it's driving slightly crooked. So Hendricks limping around with a damaged car, not able to keep up with Polasek even as he pulls up to the back of other lead cars. And look at this, really struggling there as Zepka's going to go around him into the final corner, and Carr will go around the outside. And Hendricks is just begging for the rain to hit, so he has an excuse to pit for the fast prepare, and he's going to go ahead and do it anyway without the rain. And this may end his race as well, as we see a couple cars go by battling for position. That's Damon Mitchell on the inside, Cooper Akers on the outside for P12. And Raymond 2 sets the fastest lap of the race. The track has dried. He continues to be the fastest car on it. He's pulling away from Fleet a little bit. And now McKenzie kind of bottled up behind Fleet, or maybe they're running about the same pace, but 2 is extending the gap a little. Raymond 2 does not have a career victory in the Alpha Touring Challenge. 2 pit stops, 50 minutes, a lot of time left, a lot can happen, but it's something to keep in mind. Further back, this is the battle to be watching though. Luzon and Bauer trying to keep Bertolucci and Polasek bottled up behind them. And now Polasek going to go for a move on Bertolucci and almost makes it 3 wide as Bertolucci looking in on Bauer himself. They make a little bit of contact, and this is getting dicey. Off the racing line, there's still some moist parts of the track, but really this looks like a pretty dry track, pretty green track, but dry. And they continue as Lewis Gilbert has lost another position, this time to Anthony Harrison. Fleet Smith may be under pressure from McKenzie here. He's 3/10 back this time. This is the closest he has been. And he does look to the right, but thinks better of it. And further down the straight, no action here. And then in the battle for 9th, Zepka staying ahead of what is a pretty large train of cars there. We have less than 10 minutes until the rain starts to come down. I'm wondering if you can see it from certain parts of the track now. Bertolucci is under serious pressure from Polasek. We're going more with Polasek to show just how much pressure he's putting on these guys. Bertolucci has some rear end damage. I wonder if it's from Polasek or from the start of the race. He's just bottled up here. In a way, you could say he's losing time to the leaders, but he kind of isn't. The leaders aren't putting that much time on these guys. They're only 5 or 6 seconds back. So it's still entirely possible that Polasek can go up and win this race, but he has to clear these cars immediately, and he'll send it on Bertolucci here. He's tried this for a few laps now, but this is, I think, the best shot he's had at it. Bertolucci will have slightly more momentum heading down to the chicane, and he is going to fight this. But as they hit the apex, Polasek's gone in deep to make sure that he can get the position, gathers it up, and he is ahead, 7th on track. And now he's got the 2 breakfast for dinner drivers lurking ahead of him. Speaking of breakfast for dinner, you have James Carr behind. He's gained 2 spots in this race. He's running behind Mike D'Almeida, who has also been running a great pace in this one. He's gained 1 spot up to 10th. If we look behind, let's see if we can get a shot. Those clouds back there are rain. There's rain somewhere up in those. That's the direction it's coming from, I think. And we'll look back to the front because McKenzie is very close to Fleet Smith, and we have someone coming down pit lane now. Brian Son is on pit road. And Jason Lynn is on pit road. Is the rain falling? I don't see any rain on windshields. We'll look to Anthony Harrison. He's in a battle with Kyle Murray. And he'll go around the outside and easily take this position here, moving up into 20th. It's getting a bit more hazy around the track. Humidity's going up. But as of yet, none of the wet stuff. Fleet and Logan are both gaining on Raymond again. Schenk is not gaining on any of the 3. And there's the rain. It's raining in the final sector of the track now. And already you can tell it's getting a little wetter. The spray is back. So now I just wonder, what will we see these drivers jump onto as we look at tire compounds? We don't have tire compounds. But we can wait and see if anyone pits here. None of the leaders go in. So Shink abstains. We look back. Someone has peeled off, and it is Ian Bertolucci. He was just behind Michael Polasek, just ahead of Matt Zepka when he came down pit road. James Carr is going to follow him, and Damon Mitchell as well. So these guys further back in the pack, it may make sense for them to pit now, whereas it may be better for the leaders to not do that, just because of where they were on track at the time. But we'll keep an eye on it. Raymond 2 is finishing up Sector 1 now. Last lap was a 36.5 through Sector 1. That time a 36.6. Everyone a couple tenths slower through that sector this time. So this may not quite be the crossover lap, but Evan Clavijo, Delta leader, he's on pit road now. Spencer Clark and Jess Rakowski, they do not come down. So the Delta class, the leaders have been split on strategy now. And coming through Sector 2, they're coming around Jason Lynn, who has pitted on the wet tires. Last time these guys came through Sector 2, they were 37.4, 37.3. This time, they are a second off of that. So the rain coming down heavy now, and the leader's a second off the pace, and Fleet and Logan have caught Raymond here. Shink has lost ground to them a little bit. Everyone's struggling. I imagine they have to pit on this lap, surely. They're about a second off. Fleet goes wide. McKenzie gets to the inside and fighting for P2. It's a yellow flag, 1-2, and McKenzie is going down pit road. In the last second, he bails out of that. And guess what? Everyone else goes by him. I cannot believe it. Only Lazan follows him. Even Bauer and Polasek stay on track. Zepka will come down pit road. Mike Dalmida does not. What about Cooper Akers? He stays out. David Thomas stays out. Mark Darnell is on pit road. This is crazy. I did not expect the leaders to stay out this long. We'll look at Sector 1 times again. Last time they did a 36.6. That was only 2/10 off the pace at that time. Now as Raymond finishes the sector, he's struggling. And he comes out 2 seconds off of the Sector 1 pace last time. I think he should have pitted. I think he and Fleet and Francois all should have pitted last lap. The gaps between them all, I think, are going to bail them out. McKenzie may come out in the lead here, but these three may still be P2, 3, 4, because Bauer also didn't pit. Polasek didn't pit. The next driver that pitted, well, Bertolucci may be really in a good spot here, if he can find good pace on those wet tires, because he went on earlier than anyone else, and it looks like earlier was better. Bauer and Polasek are going around Jason Lynn now. Look at how wet it is. They're going to go 3 wide, fighting in the wet on dry tires. On the slicks, Polasek up to P3 for the moment. You have to imagine 2 and Fleet coming down pit road this time. Rakowski and Clark off pit exit. Here comes Evan Clavijo. It's going to be close. Clark emerges, but Clavijo is going to hold on to the Delta lead here because Clark's going to have to warm those tires up. Oh, he's going to go and try and hold on to it, though. He may keep Clavijo behind him. Raymond 2 and Fleet Smith are on pit road now. Shink, Bauer, Polasek, the rest of them are all on for wet tires. Clavijo still fighting Clark. Here's where the warmer tires will come into effect. Around the outside. 2 wide into the turn. Can he hold it around the outside? There's going to be no grip on the inside for Clark. And he's bullied out of the lead. There's nothing he could have done. And Clavijo, just superior grip. And now we watch McKenzie. He came out 4.5 seconds ahead of Lazan. 8.7 ahead of Bertolucci. He's in a good spot. I think he may have pitted on the right lap here. Raymond 2 is still jacked up. Fleet just behind him. So where is McKenzie? Off the final corner. 2 is moving along with Fleet. Polasek, Shink, off pit road as well. So here we go. Off pit exit. He's going to be ahead of McKenzie along with Fleet. There is McKenzie. And McKenzie lost ground to Shink actually. So I think going the extra lap may have been the move. But some of that may have also been him warming up the wet tires. They are difficult those first couple laps. So let's see how much ground he gains on the leaders here. He's 3.5 seconds off of Fleet Smith right now. Let's see how that changes. Polasek comes out just behind John Lazon. He'll have momentum here. Will he go for a move? There's not going to be a whole lot of space on the track through this sector now. There's really only one line, and he can't do anything now. And Connor Acatella, it sounds like he has had some kind of incident. He's dropped to 25th. I'm seeing that he crashed. Lynn Murray and Rakowski have all gone off track at some point. And Rakowski just trying to gather it up there. She is still holding on to that final podium spot. Clavijo now has a 3-second gap on Clark. He's killing it on the wet tires. On those warmer wets, he's really been able to pull out a gap. Akers and Carr going wheel to wheel in the wet weather. Oh, this is going to be dicey. Carr is going to have that inside line, but it's wetter down there. I think he's going to make it work, though. And then Darnell. This is the battle for 13th, and he gets a little squirrely. And Thomas will have the inside line. And he gets it done. So Thomas into 13th. And Mitchell's just behind these guys. And look at the visibility here. The spray kicked up. It's hard to see. And these guys only too wide in front of him. He picks to follow Thomas. And just no grip. But Darnell stuck on that inside line. And speaking of no grip, nothing he could do. And he gets done by both those guys. And now Raymond 2 wide in turn 1. Fleet Smith takes the lead at Zandvoort. And it's a yellow flag 2-3 now. And Fleet Smith has also never won a race in this series. He pulls up front for the first time. He's been falling to this whole race. Now we get to see if his pace is actually better than the yellow flag driver. 2 making an error into turn 1. It's not enough for McKenzie to slip by him. Francois Shink is 4 seconds off of this group, and then Polasek's another 2.3 off. So it's a big ask for either of those guys, I think, to win this race. And oh no! Shink! Big slide! Into the wall, across the track. Polasek has to dodge him! And that almost ended Polasek's race, and I think it has ended Shink's race. He has heavy damage, and he'll have to pit an extra time. So he will be sliding down the order with that one. And now Raymond 2 is going to have to let McKenzie through as McKenzie goes around the outside. And into Sector 3, in 1 lap, Raymond 2 has gone from the lead to 2.3 seconds off of it. And it is raining again. It rained a lot initially, and then it stopped raining. But now it's starting to come down again. So the conditions are going to get worse before they get better here. Darnell and Thomas are still fighting, and Mitchell's left him in the dust. But now this involves Delta leaders Clavijo and Clark is catching back up to Clavijo. So Clavijo is going to be looking for a speedy resolution to this fight. On the inside of Darnell, way over the curb, but he's got Darnell on that inside line, and this may work out for him. Let's see. He has the momentum. Nope. Tucks back in. And Bertolucci will go around Francois Shink as Shink finally makes it back to pit road to pick up. Oh man, look at that right front tire. You can see from here how badly it is bent from that impact. James Carr going by out on track. He gets promoted into the top 10, still chasing Mike DeAlmeida. And Evan Clavijo is going to try again on Mark Darnell. Now he's got a nose in, but he's down in the wet stuff, so he's not going to have a good run out of the corner. Oh, Darnell gets a little loose there. Smith is still your leader. He now has a 2-second gap over McKenzie. He was 3/10 faster than him on the last lap. And now, catastrophe. Raymond 2 has fully crashed, and in these conditions, he can't hold on to the lead, he can't hold on to the car, and he's out of the race. He tows to pit road. And this puts Polasek on the podium, but 7 seconds off of McKenzie, and 9.5 off of the lead. James Carr goes around Mike D'Almeida as he makes an error and comes back on track ahead of Cooper Akers. And the track is, the conditions are dicey. Polasek has just gone off and come back on, and that has allowed John Lazon to get back up to him a little bit. And it rains again. It's raining in some parts of the track, but not in others. And you can see just how wet it's starting to get now. The conditions, they're tricky. The drivers do not know where the grip is at this point. It's falling away from them in some areas. It's coming back to them in others. Overall, it's just a mess. Even on the wet tires, it's constant exploration. You see guys taking these different lines, trying everything they can to figure out where the pace is at this point. Clavijo, this may be the best chance he's had at Darnell. Now he'll be on the outside for turn 1, and that's probably where you want to be. Clark goes to the right, behind, but Clavijo, I think, is going to easily go around the outside if he keeps it on track. And speaking of keeping it on track, David Thomas ahead is off track, and he's actually going to end up blocking Clavijo here, and here's a little wrench in this battle. Clavijo has to go wide into the corner entry, Darnell shallow, and Clavijo will be able to still slot in there. And that puts a car in between him and Spencer Clark. And now Ian Bertolucci has crashed on track, and he has had to tow. And Matt Zepka has done the same at the same time, at the same place. And they are both out of this one, so that promotes. James Carr was in 10th last time I looked at him. Now he's in 6th. Evan Clavijo working the right side of David Thomas, and he'll get that position done. The Delta leader is now in the overall top 10. This is not a drill. Cars are going off left and right in this wet weather. We still have another pit stop left. And this is just kind of sputtering, spitting rain. It's turning on and off at a whim. So just as the dry line starts to form, more water will come down and just muddy it again. And the whole track is starting to become one big ice rink as a result. Just rubber everywhere, water everywhere. Fleet Smith still has a 2-second lead over McKenzie, 2.5 almost. But they've had essentially the same pace, and Polasek has also been on the same pace as them. So the entire top 3, they're setting pretty much identical lap times. McKenzie was a little faster that last time around. Spencer Clark, it's now his chance to go at Mark Darnell for the chance to continue chasing the Delta leader. And he will get that done. And just behind, well, he's gone a little deep though. And on the over-under, here comes Darnell, but I think with the momentum, he'll still be able to do this. And he gets, oh, he's into a big slide. And he does hit the wall. He has damage, left side damage, and the battle for the Delta lead may have just come to a swift end. Schink and Hendricks, who are also fighting for position back there, are going to go around him. And we're going to go on board to see if he has any kind of damage now. Running with some kind of wheel damage. No, it doesn't look like it, so he's fine. Mike D'Almeida has just gone off track and allowed Cooper Akers to slip by him. And Daniel Sedano goes by Lewis Gilbert. He's off track. That's oh, that was an interesting place to be off track. I'm surprised we didn't see him in the wall hard. Micah Hendricks trying another move on Francois Schink. Both of these guys just on recovery drives, usually up front, now fighting for 13th. And Hendricks does get around Schink. Now he's sandwiched between two SIA drivers. And James Carr has taken a trip off track. That is not the racing line through the chicane. He's out in the middle of nowhere. No one is around him. So no one to take advantage of that mistake. And now Mark Darnell has done the same. Through the chicane, he's going to lose out here to his teammate and maybe another teammate. And we're waiting to see Spencer Clark pits here, because he does have that damage. But he's gonna wait. And he's gonna try and pass Darnell here and continue to attempt to attack for the Delta lead. That gap is now 7.5 seconds. So he's got a bit of ground to make up. And that pass is not over with. Darnell holds the outside. Clark on the right side. This is where it gets wet, so he's going to get into a slide here. He's got to gather it up, and he does. It's where he crashed earlier. Now he's making an overtake there. Back up into 14th. Fleet Smith's lead is slowly diminishing. It was at 2.4 seconds. Now it's at 1.5, 1.6. McKenzie slowly making inroads. Polisek's gap to McKenzie remains the same. And the closest battle on track is Damon Mitchell closing in on Cooper Akers and Mike DeAlmeida. Another 10 minutes or so, maybe 15, and we'll see the last set of pit stops. A lot of people were first forced to pit a bit early compared to when they usually would because of the wet tires, so the second stint will be longer than they typically are. And now Mike DeAlmeida under pressure. Damon to the right, but can't get a nose in. And Lazan has been doing a great job keeping up with Polasek here. He's been the fastest car on track the last couple laps. On that lap, Lazan was half a second faster than anybody else. A second faster than the leaders. At that kind of pace, he could be in contention. But that's in these specific conditions. And I think eventually, maybe now, it will or has stopped raining for the rest of the race. It's only supposed to last till somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes in. So we may have a little bit more fall, but for the most part, I think we're done, and we should start to see the track dry out from here. Though I imagine we'll be on wet tires the rest of the race, it will get faster, a dry line will form. And so we jump back to the front. McKenzie holds a 7.5 second advantage over Polasek and a second off of Fleet Smith. Smith has been doing a good job of holding that position ever since inheriting it from Raymond 2. I see that Damon Mitchell just took a journey off track for about a second, but looks like he came back on safely. And then Kyle Murray has just come out of pit lane. So he finishes what I believe is his second stop of the day. And then Mark Darnell leads Jess Rakowski for 15th in the race. And Rakowski chasing Spencer Clark for that second spot on the Delta podium. Micah Hendricks has just eked around David Thomas for the 11th position. And Hendricks still 2 spots down from where he started. He had to pit on lap 5, so a bit off strategy in this race. Ian Bertolucci's come down pit road, and he has, actually that may be from earlier, he had heavy damage, but you know who else has crashed? Francois Schenck. And he has lost a plethora of positions here. Trying to see if there's any damage on the car. I think there is some on the rear. Yes, quite heavy. I don't know if he has a meatball flag from the stewards. But we're very close to that final pit stop. So if he extends a couple laps, he may be able to make it to the end of the race on one more stop. We go back to the battle between Darnell and Rakowski. That's the closest on track. I feel like I hear someone kicking into a slide. I think it was Spencer Clark. He's still got about a second on Darnell. He did lose some ground through turn 1. And he's running a lower line there compared to Rakowski. They all ran different lines. Clark on the low line, Darnell taking the traditional line, and Rakowski taking an early apex, trying to dive down to the bottom. And they're all just trying to experiment and figure out what works in this situation. Now, Evan Clavijo, the Delta leader, is next. Or excuse me, he is next on Micah Hendricks' hit list, but actually he's closed up to the back of Mike D'Almeida. And the Delta leader is cooking, trying to get past the double yellow driver so he can get into 10th, or excuse me, 9th overall. I see James Carr and David Bauer both just took journeys off track, but they have not lost any positions off of that. Rakowski on the outside of Darnell. There's a lot of grip out there. Let's see. She may have the momentum heading down to the chicane. She will, so she'll be on the right side. You've got Anthony Harrison and Francois Schenk lurking behind. And on the brakes, Darnell with a little wiggle, and Rakowski is going to easily slip on by as it starts to sputter a little bit more. Some rain over here. This is the wettest part of the track, and I think the other parts of the track could dry, and this part still be very wet. Michael Polasek has gotten, or is still ahead of John Lazon. It's a 0.7 of a second gap here. Not even. Lazon got a great run out of the corner there, but he's got nowhere to take it. And now we've got some takers for the second pit stop of the day. Spencer Clark is on pit road. He's got left side damage that I don't think he had before, so this may be unscheduled. Micah Hendricks having to take an early stop. And that promotes Rakowski up into second in the Delta class. And she's starting to open up a little bit of a gap on Darnell now that she is passed. And Clavijo is still working on the back of Mike D'Almeida. Let's see if he's able to find some kind of line here heading into the back half of the second sector. And those two cars ahead of them, that's Cooper Akers and Damon Mitchell. So they have some competition here. If Clavijo can't get this pass done soon, they're all going to be bottled up behind Akers. And just over 20 minutes left in this race, and Darnell has had to let Anthony Harrison through, and now his teammate, Francois Schenk, is next. And yeah, it does look like it is still raining in that part of the track, but just that part of the track. If we cut to Michael Polasek, or John Lazon, excuse me, Michael Polasek has pitted. So a slightly early stop. And he had damage to fix on his left front. So David Bauer and James Carr will go by on track. And a couple of early takers for this final pit stop. The window must be quite wide. And Carr is now working on the back of his teammate Bauer. Polasek will exit pit lane just ahead of Clavijo. Bauer going wide, and now on that worst line. It's raining again over here as well. And Carr goes through, and that puts him in fourth place for now. B4D in third, fourth, and fifth on track at the moment. Clavijo just behind Polasek. So Polasek exited in between these two while they were having their little spat. And now this is a big row of cars. Polasek has exited into heavy traffic here. And you could see the spray. You could see that part of the track is still not super grippy right now. We're still in the midst of pit stops, just waiting for really the rest of the leaders to come down. Polasek pitted. He was about a second and a half off of the two ahead. And he's struggling here. A lot of wiggling happening now, and he's helping to separate Mike D'Almeida and Clavijo. And Francois Schenk looking to the left side of Mark Darnell. A little wiggle. Dangerous part of the track to be on, but he manages to get it done. We look back to Damon Mitchell. He's been stuck behind Cooper Akers for a bit. Now he's got Mike Delmita right on his back bumper. And heading into the chicane, you can see Delmita has some right front damage. Looking for an opening, but couldn't find anything. So they continue in this long row of cars. This is, I think, the biggest group on track. The next biggest group being the one over here, led by Rakowski. Not as coherent of a group, but she's got 3 very fast drivers behind her. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Right now, running P2 in the Delta class, that makes Brian Son your 3rd podium sitter in 3rd, but Lewis Gilbert is right behind him, looking for a move there in the chicane, but couldn't quite get it done. Back up front, the gaps here are very close, and Mike Delmita may look to the inside here. Instead, Polosek's going to go around the outside, and I think that Polosek will easily pull that off, and he does. Up into P8 now. He hunts Mitchell and Akers next, and that has moved Mike Delmita all the way back here to Clavijo, but nowhere for Clavijo to go on this winding backstretch where there's really only one line. It's still kind of raining. It just will not stop. Brian Son has now come down pit road for his final stop of the day. And these stops very spread out. We have 2 more coming down. That's Kyle Murray and Jason Lynn. They've been going back and forth for the last 10 minutes or so, and really all day, battling for 7th in class at the moment. They both pull into their stalls. And back on track, Francois Schenck, he's still carrying damage. I guess he didn't have a meatball, and it's not affecting him all that much, but he sits in between Darnell and Harrison has gained 14 positions since the start of this race. Schenck down 8, and they're in the same spot. I'm sure they have slightly different perspectives on life right now. Damon Mitchell, 3/10 off of Akers, and you got to get a move on because Polosek is going to reach you soon. Do you pit before Polosek even attacks, before you have a chance to lose time? James Carr pulls onto pit road. He is not followed or joined by either of his teammates. Akers and Mitchell both abstain on this lap. And there is James Carr on pit road. He will be joined by Evan Clavijo. He's going to try and undercut Mike Delmita on pit lane. And this may work out for him based on the kind of speed he is showing. Carr exits his stall. And Rakowski will come down as well. That means that Lewis Gilbert is going to inherit the Delta lead unless he too has to pit. And she pulls into her stall right as Clavijo is wrapping up his stop. And we're looking at Lewis Gilbert enter the start-finish straight now. And he'll continue on. Spencer Clark has already pitted. So let's watch Spencer Clark here. Because this will be interesting. He's running very close to the wall. Interesting. I wonder if he's trying to cool the tires a bit. And around the outside of turn 1, Clavijo has exited well ahead of him. And Rakowski will exit further behind. And she's actually taking a new set of tires, so that's going to cost her a bit of time. Sedano goes through as well. I haven't seen any other of the top drivers pit. I saw John Lazon went off track, and now he's sporting some front right damage. He was off track for about 2.5, 3 seconds. I wonder, it looks pretty bad. How drivable is it? If we go on board, he's got wheel damage. He's going to pit to take the fast repair now. That's going to not end up costing him too much time. But if we look at his sector 2, it's almost it's 3.5 seconds off the pace. Sector 3 was also 4 seconds off the pace. So this mistake has cost Lazon dearly. I don't think he's going to be close to Polosek, even with the traffic that Polosek was in. Rakowski only just now getting out of her stall. Here comes Polosek now. Akers down pit road. Mitchell down pit lane as well. Now, he did get passed by Polosek before that happened. Mike Delmita stays out. And as we look to pit exit, Lazon well behind Polosek now, but he did get that damage fixed up. Anthony Harrison will come down pit road for his final fuel stop, leaving Francois Schink and Mark Darnell out on track. Damon Mitchell will not beat Cooper Akers off pit road. Akers stays ahead, wins the race off. And Clavijo still has a 4-second lead in the Delta class. Jess Rakowski has crashed shortly after exiting pit road, and her chances at the Delta podium are done. Just behind her, Lewis Gilbert pulls onto pit road. Anthony Harrison is taking a fresh set of tires. Again, going to cost him some time. Gilbert does not take any more tires. He's just getting fuel. And further behind, that's Daniel Cedeno jumping onto pit road. And Gilbert will exit well behind the Delta leaders. He's already behind Clavijo and Clark, who are into turn 3 now. But Gilbert may hold on to a podium spot here. There are no Delta drivers behind that aren't on pit road. This field has been thinned out quite a bit, so Gilbert exits into a podium spot at the moment. McKenzie and Fleet Smith are on pit road, and they're side by side. How did that happen? Coming down to their pit stalls, battling for the lead. They are wheel to wheel on pit lane entry. And Fleet Smith has been jacked up. He is getting a fresh set of tires, so he may actually be out of the race for the lead. McKenzie's gone. He had almost no fuel to fill. 15 minutes left in the race, and Fleet is still up on the jacks. Where now we have to look to Michael Polasek. David Bauer goes by. There's Polasek. He is going to pass Fleet Smith as well. Will Smith hold on to the podium spot? There goes Mike D'Almeida. He still has to pit. Lazon does not have to pit. And Smith is going to exit pit lane, not only out of the lead, but completely off of the podium. He has 14 minutes to hunt down Lazon for a podium spot, but that gap's going to be about 4 seconds by the time he finishes his outlap. It's already up to 3.3, 3.5. I guess he didn't take a fresh set of tires, so the tires will be somewhat warmed up. But it's not looking good for Smith. He's provisionally 4th. Mark Darnell is on pit road. He's leaving his stall now. Acatella is doing the same. So Clark will go by them on track. Will he get by Darnell? I don't think he will. Darnell exits well ahead. And between Polasek's qualifying error and Fleet Smith and Raymond too making other errors, Logan McKenzie so far scot-free in this race. 13 minutes to go. He's inherited the lead. He's got 4 seconds on David Bauer. That is Jason Lynn parked up there. That is not the correct direction that the car should be facing, but there he is at the final chicane as Lazon goes through. We're going to see the gap between Lazon and Fleet Smith here. Fleet Smith throwing it in there. There's a 3.2 second gap between him and Lazon as Jason does get that backed up. There goes James Carr, and Carr running 7th right now. He's kind of in no man's land. A lot of people separated at this point. The rain has really spread the field out, and we're just looking to see if people can hang on to the end here, I think. Michael Polasek inherits P2. He started in 14th. He's up 12 spots. And a day where it looked like his rivals may be able to take a chomp out of his championship lead. McKenzie may be leading the race, but Polasek is looking for P2. David Bauer is off pit lane along with Mike D'Almeida. Francois Schink will go by them, so he has managed to get ahead of them. And Micah Hendricks may do the same on pit lane exit. He's ahead of Mike D'Almeida alongside David Bauer, and the race for 7th into turn number 2. Around the outside, Micah Hendricks, he's on the low line though. This is going to be interesting. Bauer's going to have a huge run on the exit of this corner, but he's not going to have anywhere to take it. Watch this. There's only one line through here. Will he try and force something? No, he lets it go. Mike D'Almeida exited behind Cooper Akers, so he's right back into that fight. But crucially, he is ahead of Damon Mitchell, so he jumped Mitchell on pit lane. Mitchell was on pit lane for 2 seconds longer. Akers the same. And I just heard someone kick out into a big slide. Was not looking. Brian Son has crashed. Big damage for him. David Thomas also on pit road. And the wet weather continues to claim victims. Shink has made it all the way back up into 5th. He's got Carr right behind him, though. That's only a 1-second gap, so there will be a battle for the top 5 developing. Fleet Smith now 4 seconds off of Lazan, so Lazan may have managed to sneak his way into a podium spot here. Just over 10 minutes to go at Zandvoort, the first wet race in ATC history, and right now, defending champion Logan McKenzie looks to be holding on for the win. It's a 7.5-second gap over Michael Polasek at the moment. That gap between them has been the same for basically the last 30 minutes. And now we're looking at Shink trying to hold off Carr for top 5. Carr has gained 7 spots in this race, and there goes Shink. He did have a scheduled pit stop remaining, so he has to come in. Carr will inherit 5th. So Micah Hendricks in 6th. He's only 2.5 off of Carr. On that last lap, he was a bit faster. So we'll see how that develops. Hendricks got by Carr's teammate Bauer on pit exit. It has not been raining for about 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes in most parts of the track. Shink is going to exit ahead of his teammate Mark Darnell. He was going to exit behind the Delta leader Evan Clavijo, but Clavijo made a mistake in turn 1, managed to keep it on track just barely. Now he's going to set up a 2-wide scenario. Shink with a big wiggle at the apex. Clavijo goes in deep. Big slide. Gets the power down. Shink goes up on the inside. And look at this. What am I watching? That was a strange sequence of events. And Shink managed to gather it up and use it to his advantage. 29 cars were fielded here today. There are only 19 on track currently. The wet weather has claimed quite a few victims so far. Clavijo is still on track, however, to take a Delta victory, the first wet Delta victory ever, a 10-second advantage over Spencer Clark, and even more over Gilbert and Cedeno. He really just has to keep it on track. Oh, a huge moment there. But, yeah, speaking of keeping it on track, it's the second time this lap that he has almost had the car facing the wrong direction. And now Lazan is on pit road. I'm not sure if he was not going to make it on fuel or hit the incident limit, but this is going to put Fleet Smith back on the podium, and James Carr has to come in behind him. So Carr and Lazan. Lazan, it's a drive-through. Hendricks gets a spot off of this. It may be a drive-through for James Carr as well. They both hit the incident limit, driving in the wet, collecting off tracks. Fleet Smith benefits. Look at all these cars going by. James Carr, Akers, Mike DeAlmeida, Damon Mitchell. David Bauer went through. John Lazan managed to only lose a spot to Fleet Smith in all that, despite these two not being that far apart. There is Lazan. He'll slip ahead of Brian Son. So 20 cars on track now. 23, if I'm seeing Ian Bertolucci is back out on track. Despite being, I think, 2 laps down. He's back out on track, I think, because he's realized other cars have fallen out of the race, and he can get some spots here by just driving around. Where is he? There he is. Yes. What's the gap to the leader? It's... he is 3 or 4 laps down, so good on the 51, hunting whatever points he can get. And just like that, he's up into 21st. Akers under pressure from Mike DeAlmeida, and he's going to go up the inside. You wonder if these apexes are drying out now, enough for them to be used. And the double yellow driver certainly testing it. Now around the outside, he may have an advantage here if he can keep the nose in. Brian Son trying to let these guys through. He does. Akers with a slide at the apex. That gives Mike DeAlmeida the advantage down the straightaway. And to the chicane, the 6 is into 7th. And David Bauer's not that far up the road. Only 6.5 minutes to go here at Zandvoort. And can we just talk about, actually, the cars in the top 10? Fleet Smith, this a podium Incredible drive from him. He's managed to hold on to it despite everything that's happened. Michael Polasek, we maybe expected him to cut into the top 10, but not all the way up into second. It's been an incredible recovery from him and pretty flawless so far. Mike D'Almeida, he's gained 4 spots, and he's looking for another, and he just continues an incredible run of form as David Bauer goes wide, and he will give Mike D'Almeida what he was looking for, and maybe Cooper Akers as well. Akers not able to make a move there, though, but Bauer making the same mistake that we saw Clavijo make a couple laps earlier. These drivers, I think, are testing the braking zone in turn 1 as the track dries out and finding it's still just a bit too wet to make the corner, at least at full bore. Let's see. Brian Son is back on pit lane, so Ian Bertolucci hunting for a top 20 as he's still on track. This is the closest battle on the circuit at the moment, and James Carr is trying to get back up to these guys by the time we hit the end of the race. 5 minutes to go. Cooper Akers is another one of these drivers that we've got to talk about because, oh, he's getting passed by Damon Mitchell. What a move up the inside, and Mitchell has made that look quite nice. He's got to finish it. Akers trying to scare with a little crossover, but he can't get it done. But Akers has still done a tremendous job today. He's moved 3 spots up. He's hanging out in the top 10 with the big boys. Same with Damon Mitchell and David Bauer. These guys are all running an incredible race today in the wet. Some of the faster guys have fallen off, made mistakes, and they've stayed here, been here. And they're all fighting for position with less than 5 minutes in this one. The margin to the lead has been cut down. Polasek has actually gained 2.5 seconds on McKenzie. I don't know if McKenzie's taking it slow or Polasek has found some pace. But on that last lap, Polasek was exactly 1 second faster. That's still not enough to catch McKenzie by the end of the race at this point. But if the pace difference widens a bit more, maybe by the final lap, is he even in the picture? There he is, all the way in the back there. That is Polasek, followed by Matt Zepka, who is a lap down now. We're going to bounce to James Carr. He's going deep on Akers in turn 1, trying to squeeze a nose in there. We'll go on board. These guys know just a couple laps remaining. All the points are still to play for. And into turn 3, they get all the way up on that banking to roll as much speed and momentum out on the exit. It's been less effective in the wet because there's only one real racing line down the backstretch. They're getting closer to the apex of the backstretch, though. It's drying out a little bit. He's got the wipers on, but that's all just spray. The rain has left the track and has left the track a long time ago. He may go for a move here, sticking it to the right side. You could hear him working the throttle, trying to get the car to grip up so he could get alongside the 29, but it just wasn't working. And up ahead, Mitchell is on top of David Bauer, who continues to struggle as Mike D'Almeida drives away from him. Mitchell looks to the left, trying to squeeze a nose in there, and Bauer leaves him the minimum amount of room, and then some. And these guys all close back up as we head to the end of this race. McKenzie just crossed the line, and I believe we have 2 laps to go. And James Carr with a deep lunge on Cooper Akers, and he finally gets that move done. He's up into 9th once again, and he's got 2 cars ahead of him. 2 laps to go. And now the bleeding to Polasek has ended. Not sure if it was a couple off laps from McKenzie, but the gap has actually widened a little bit again. So at this rate, it is just McKenzie's to lose. He just has to keep it on track. Evan Clavijo still has a almost 12-second gap on Spencer Clark, and then 30 seconds to Lewis Gilbert. So it's been a dominating performance in the Delta class from Clavijo today. Mitchell under pressure here as they start the penultimate lap. Everyone's still on that wet tire, and of course they will be taking it to the very end. It's still wet enough, I think, that it is a very nice feeling tire, but parts of the track, especially the first sector, starting to look noticeably drier than before. Mitchell's on this inside line. Is it going to work? There's just enough grip for him, but Carr goes around the right side and stays on track. Oh, but Mitchell gets into the back of him, and on the last lap, Mitchell's going to go wide. Carr's going to go wide. Can Akers capitalize? He goes around Mitchell, looking to the right side of Carr. Bauer's getting away like a bandit. And Akers slots back in. Mitchell got in the back of Carr a little bit there, and I think it sent them both off track. And now Akers going to the right side of Carr as he gets a little wiggle. And big struggles from all these guys. Akers looking to the left with a move. We saw him try that before, but he did manage to force Carr off the racing line. This is manic, and they are all in different cars. It's a Honda, an Elantra, a Veloster. And I think David Bowers opened up a nice, comfortable gap there, secure P7. But Carr goes in really deep into the chicane, finding a lot of grip and makes up some time. He's only 8/10 off of Bauer here, so there's a chance that something could happen. White flag is out for McKenzie. He comes out of the third corner. He's got a 5-second advantage on Polasek. No need to push here. And as these guys come onto the final lap, Akers, it looked like he was going to pit there for a moment, but he may just be looking for a dry part of the track, a wet part of the track. They are braking on the racing line now. Carr a little to the inside, though, and he is really catching up to Bauer here. He's got a shot to get by him by the end of this race. P7, the battle for P7 is still on here at Zandvoort. Look at that. Catching the slide. So much counter steer in that Honda. And big momentum off the corner. He'll be right up on the back of Bauer for the second half of the lap. Using as much of that curve as possible. You got to be brave on the brakes. Hook it around the outside. You just can't use this apex at all. Look at how big that pedal is. He's looking to the right side on his teammate. What a move! Side by side into the final sector. They are going to go wheel to wheel. Carr still stuck on the inside here. And Bauer on the outside. I don't think there's going to be anything he can do. Carr up into 7th on the final lap. And out of the final corner, Logan McKenzie wins at Zandvoort, the first ever wet race in the Alpha Touring Challenge. He will stand on the top step. Michael Polasek second. Fleet Smith third. Carr holding off Bauer at the moment. Will he go for a last lunge into the chicane? No, I don't think so. He will hold on to that. Lazan and Hendricks. Hendricks was chasing down Lazan, but he just couldn't get him in the end. So Lazan will come home 4th place, and Hendricks will be 5th. And then Mike D'Almeida is going to secure a fantastic 6th position. Carr 7th, Bauer 8th, Mitchell 9th, Akers 10th. It was hard fought for all those positions, and then you got to go much further back to find Francois Schink and Evan Clavijo. Clavijo, he may be well out of the Delta lead in the championship at the moment, but he's still looking for a fight. A victory at Zandvoort is a first step at clawing back the deficit to Spencer Clark, and he does it in style. A 15-second advantage over the next Delta driver, the SRG car, victorious here in the wet. What a drive. We saw him have a couple of moments where he had to gather that one up, and just did a fantastic job to do so. And over an hour of racing as Zandvoort has now concluded. Just 3 races to go in this championship. Hockenheim, Homestead, Red Bull Ring. Homestead is forecast to be wet, so there will be one more wet event before the end of the season. And up until then, we have Hockenheim. The outer layout is what we'll be running. And it looks like Clavijo is out of fuel. But the Delta winner, much to celebrate. And I think McKenzie may also be out of fuel. But there is Fleet Smith, giving him congratulations. And Smith with a podium himself today. An amazing drive from him. We are pretty much done here at Zandvoort. It's been an amazing race. Seeing the wet strategy play out, when to pit, to get on those wet tires, and then people just trying to survive from there on was really incredible to see. Something brand new for the series, and hope we'll see a lot more of it going forward. Let's take a look at your final results from here at Circuit Zandvoort. Logan McKenzie ends up with a 4.5 second margin of victory over Michael Polasek. And then Fleet Smith comes home third on the podium after leading a good third of the race, I believe. John Lazon fourth, Micah Hendricks fifth, Mike D'Almeida sixth. Carr, Bauer, Mitchell, and Akers round out the top 10. Evan Clavijo wins the Delta class for SCRG, just under a minute off of the overall leader, and well ahead of Clark and Gilbert, who finished off that podium. Then you have Cedeno and Lynn finishing up the top 5. Zepka, Lynn, Son, Bertolucci. Son and Bertolucci were the last drivers to finish on track. And then from here on down, the drivers that did not finish: David Thomas, Anthony Harrison, Rakowski, Murray, 2, Holroyd, Castillo, and Rick Meyer. That is going to wrap us up here at Zandvoort. Just 3 races left. Polasek and Clark hold not so slim marginal leads in their respective classes. Can they hold them in the final 3 rounds of ATC 12? Stay tuned. Next time, we will be at Hockenheim. For now, thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening.